Okay, now let's create and add some fields to migration. So we know when the Laravel default authentication is there, and they have provide the model. Also, they have also created two migration for us. So we can see in our app folder. So where we have a user model which is default, which is used for authentication. So Laravel has created it for default. So we will go with and use its model, and also we will use the Laravel that default migration, and we know where is the migrations. So here is the database table, database directory, and under migration. So you see Laravel has created a two migration for authentication. So we have to make our login and registrations uh, authentication. So we will add some fields that we will require in throughout the application. So all the basic fields that we will go for user login and user registration, and also the other application fields that will be required in this user. So I will go slowly and step by step. Uh, make sure I will make sure that you will reach out and understand the everything that I am going to explain. So this is the default migrations that Laravel has created, and one is for users, because we have a user model and it will create its users table. So make sure, not make sure but understand the thing that Laravel has the one thing that we have to give us when we go on and progress our application. You will see this concept that the a model should be a singular, and it start with capital letter. So model will be a singular, and the migration table, table that we will create in our database, it will be a plural. So it will automatically create when we create a new migration. So it will depends on your model. It will create its migration, and it will the table will be the plural form, not singular. Model will be singular, and the migration table will be plural form. So in a basic table in our Laravel for users, so this user table is using the model user model, and this user model using the table users. Okay, and they in a users migration one, there are two functions. Public function is up, so this function will create the migration, and this function, if you want to drop your table, you want to drop your one column or any migration, so we can quickly drop and schedule or re-customize or redesign our schema building, so we can use these both functions. So here is the up function to create migration, and we have I user, it will be a user id increment, auto incremental, and it will be a primary key, and the table string will be the user name. So this is a user table, and we have a name for user, and string email, that is a unique. This is a helper function, and that the Laravel use to unique for to make sure that the email address in our database table should be unique. Table string password, string is a varchar, and string is a varchar. Again, I have a fundamental for Laravel, you can go and see it, and if you are a beginner still. So I will try to make to explain a little bit or extra to make sure to understand. So table remember token is for authentication, so it will use for remember token. Table timestamp is used to create it at and update it at. So we have required some fields that we will require in our sign up form. So name, email address, password, confirm password. So these are the fields. We will not touch the four fields. So country, we required a country field, states, state address, postal code, logo, and some other fields that will be required in our application. But I will not explain these applications, right? These fields that I will create right at the moment. As our application is progress, I will explain one by one, and you will see the concept and you will understand the concept that is required. So okay, so this is the ID, and we required an other field table. and this is will be required an integer, and integer we require a parent id. So why it is required, so I will explain it later. Because when user create some other user, the admin user create other user, so we have to trace out the who has created that user. So super admin or admin user can create in our application and other user and delegate or allocate the rights admin manager user that I have explained in the beginners, at the beginning of this application. So we required a parent ID for tracking. So well, we'll see to understand, but right now let me create, and it will be unsigned. And why unsigned? Because I do not want negative values. And its default, where I have to set its default is 0, and your statement. So we require a parent ID. A user, admin user can create sub user to delegate the rights. So we have to, for tracking, we require this ID as a parent ID. So, and it will be unsigned and positive values and positive integer, not a negative integer, and default at 0. So when a new user will be created, a super admin that we will create, so its default parent ID will definitely will be 0. And when it create a sub user or other user, so then when the new user will be created, so we will add the parent ID of the super admin. So default ID is 0 for a new user, because there is no user, so ID is default is 0. Okay, so name is the same and email is the same, unique, and password, you can give password, or you can define the character, how much length of your password you have to required. Okay, and okay, let me control L and control shift D to duplicate some more lines. Okay, this is a password, and now we require a phone number of the user, and it will be the phone number will be the string, and the country, let me, okay, country will be integer. Why it is integer, not is a string? Because I will use integer value, and that integer value will refer to the country's names, and we can see it when we create a migration file. So country string, and it will be a integer. Okay, and table integer, state, and the country state, table integer, sorry, string, a worker field, a variable character, a variable character. String required is for city, and again I'm duplicating. String for address, not string. I think address will be long, and we have to not give up, because string, if we give to string, so it will use the default string length, which is 255 or 191. So okay, address, and it will be a text. You can use small text or long text. Depend upon you. You can use small text. Uh, where it is. So small text or long text. Why it is scrolling? So I will use only text, which is address. Okay, and table table postal code that we have required. It will be a varchar string post underscore code, and also we will require a table string logo, a company logo, a user. We have to require logo and the status of the user. So table, and this time we're not going to string, and we have to give enum and define our status, enum status, and we will give the two values in an array. So default, so mm, because as user status will be on or off, so we have two options to create. So we will create an array and give the only two options that we will use in our application status for user. So one is off and one is on. Either the status will be on of user is active or user is deactive, simple as that. And we have to set default. So what by default the user status is deactive. So we will set it default, which is off. Okay. Table enum status, which is a field name, and we are giving an array options of two off, either on or off, and default user status will be off. Okay. Table integer, and we will require a company ID to track the company whose this company home to company this belong to user. So we have to give the company ID. So by default the user will have no company. So when it will sign in or sign up first time it will sign up, so the user will have no company, so it will create the user company. And when it create the user company, so we have to track that company ID in our user table. So who the user had created that company, or who this company is belong home to this which user to this company is belong. Okay, and it will be unsigned, positive number, not a negative number, unsigned. And also I am this is now chaining the method. You can chain one or more method at the same time. So the company ID will be unsigned and null label. So because as a default it will be null label. Null label means default value is null. If because when user will be signed up, so there is no company, and it will create a company. So at default, so it will be a zero, null, null label. So table integer company ID unsigned null label. Okay, so we have to require a company name which is also a null label, because as start when it register the user newly a user register, so will be no company. So it will be a varchar variable character, and company name So I think the schema building is the main thing, and it is confusing for right now. So when we make our application, so these things will be explained, and you will understand uh, what it is and why we created this slide. So the company name will be unsigned again, unsigned, and also a null label. Okay, and two more fields are required. So one is for a table to describe the role of the user. So either it will be admin, either it will be a manager or member or a user. So we have to give the integer value of our table, or role table, or so we will kept in our user table. So table integer role, which role this user has. So by default will be unsigned. Unsigned is a unsigned. A positive value will be required, and it will be null label when user will create. So it has no user. So default role which will may create a one, and let me give the value first. Unsigned and default value 1. So maybe a 1 is for admin, 2 is for your member, manager, or 3 is for user. So it's all depend on what value you have at a default when user will be create. So what role this user will be have. So this ID will come from a role table. And also, okay, let me give an access table text and access, which is also a null label. So at default, there will be no access. This will be a null label field. Okay. So now let's recall, and we have a parent ID unsigned default, which is 0, name, email, unique, password, phone, country, integer, country, state, string, city, text, address, and postal code, logo, status on or off. We are giving have given a array, and default is off, and integer company ID. So this company ID will get from company table, and it is at start is unsigned positive value and nullable, and default is null, no value. And the same with thing with the company name, and will get from company table, where we will give the company name, and at unsigned positive and not negative value, nullable in null value, and integer role when we will get it from role table, and unsigned default is 1. You may give it 1 for admin or manager or user. So in my case, I think this will be admin. And table text access unnullable. So access is we will define either you what access level has this user, and remember token. Okay, and this function not required to change because it's dropping the migration. So migration schema that we have created, and let's control S to save it, and we will see to when to migrate. Before migrating a user table, maybe I will create a country and zone.